David, need essentials. Oh my God. Everybody needs, and they've got the essentials. Need Essentials is always with us for all of my wetsuits, your wetsuits, outerwear, board shorts, and accessories. Need Essentials. Thank you for your continued support of the Spit podcast.
I needn't say more. Needessentials.com.
Yeah, Guy, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday, May the 12th. And yeah, a lot going on in the surf world. The Margaret River event is over. We've got Sam McIntosh's Rich List from Stab Magazine, which is always fascinating and worthy of plenty of talk, and some other great stories. So, David, welcome, my friend.
We've also got the Ultimate Surfer
Oh my
cast
God.
list was announced.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The Olympics are only 2 weeks away, and there's lots of implications.
No, 2 months away. You mean?
I'm sorry. 2 months away. So yeah, tons of surf news. Let's get into it. Where do we begin?
Well, let's see. My story number one is the Ultimate Surfer. So the 2-night premiere of ABC's summer series, The Ultimate Surfer, is going to air in August 23rd. It'll be following all new episodes of Bachelor in Paradise, which might be a great lead in. The Ultimate Surfer features NFL quarterback Jesse Palmer as the host of the surf competition series. It also has sports anchor Aaron Coscarelli, and it includes, of course, the iconic voice of professional surfing Joe Turpel.
The Boardroom Show podcast guest, Joe Turpel.
Right. To serve as commentators. Now, in addition, 11-time World Surf League champion Kelly Slater is the lead consultant and also serves as a special correspondent. I'm getting all this information from the press release that we all gobbled up last week. The Ultimate Surfer will gather some of the world's greatest up-and-coming surfers to train and live together as they battle it out at the WSL state-of-the-art surf ranch in Lemoore, California, powered by Kelly Slater's human-made wave technology. What does that even mean, human-made wave technology? In the hope of competing against and amongst the best athletes in the world's fastest growing sport. What about pickleball? That sport's growing fast. Slater will serve as an on-air talent and special correspondent. So, David, let's get into the surfers competing. I'm sure you have the list in front of you. Break it down for us. Who are these best athletes in the world?
I thought so. It's an interesting list. I will read it to you. I was surprised at the range of ages. There's 35-year-old surfer, a 35-year-old male surfer, 34-year-old female surfer, all the way down to, I guess, 23 is the youngest. So that's a 12-year span in age. On the men's side, we have some known names who have kind of on the backside of their career, and then some people that I've never heard of before. Kai Barger from Maui, Austin Klaus from Jacksonville Beach, Florida, Mason Barnes from Venice Beach, California, Ezekiel Lau, of course, from Oahu, Luke Davis from California, Alejandro Moretta from Puerto Rico, and Koa Smith from Hawaii. That makes up the 7 male contestants. The female side is Brianna Cope from Kauai, Kayla Durden from Florida, Bruna Zahn from Redondo Beach, California, Malia Ward from San Clemente, Julie Hernandez from Costa Mesa, Anastasia Ashley from Florida, and Tia Bianco from California.
Yeah, wow. I agree with you. So look, let me just say this. When I first saw this come out, I initially was like, oh, this show is going to be lame. And then secretly, I have to admit that I was like, I'm going to watch this show. I think I'm going to watch this show. I don't know, just out of, maybe I'm going to see a train wreck. Maybe I'm going to get engaged in it. Like maybe my wife and I are going to sit every week and watch this show. I sort of doubt it relative to how much good stuff is on TV these days. Not to mention that, there's baseball in August. But the thing about the age that you bring up is really fascinating, right? And that what that tells me is that the WSL, and we sort of know this, and I don't mean to, state the obvious here, but there is no uh, um, there is no influence by the so-called surf brands out there, because they would all be gunning for either their athletes, one, or the younger surfer. Like, a 25-year-old surfer in the eyes of Billabong or Quicksilver or even Rip Curl is a little bit too old. They're constantly have these sort of youth goggles on, and it's because they just want to keep regurgitating and gain some loyalty to their brand through the 15-year-old surfer, and I'm not so sure this show is geared towards 15 to 17-year-old viewers. I think this is geared towards you and me, because I see this. I'm also wondering, is this going to be like a Big Brother type of show where there's obviously, even in the press release, they state that there's going to be alliances, sort of a survival type show where alliances are formed. And I don't understand how those alliances work if you're just riding waves and getting scored. Well, actually, a lot of the format of the show is sort of still a mystery to me.
Yeah, the format's yet to be revealed. I think that the paradigm that you're thinking in about surf brands influencing the WSL isn't applicable here. I think that this is following maybe the Bachelor's model. And yeah, like you said, Big Brother. Specifically, Dana White is involved as a executive producer. And so the Ultimate Fighter would probably be the most analogous example. But and so when you're following that model, not only do the brands not matter, but we're in a new world order where those bachelors and bachelorettes have entire branding built around them. They have millions of followers. I mean, Anastasia Ashley, I was surprised to see her name on here because she's been around surfing for a long time. So first of all, her age was what surprised me, but she has 1 million followers on social media. And so some of these other Tia Bianco who are like, oh, she surfs great and she's appealing and she's young, but she only has a third that amount of following. And so really, I think they're working on who are these individuals as brands themselves much more, because what could Billabong possibly bring to the table in terms of promotion when you're already on ABC and the individual cast member has 1 million followers themselves?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And sort of that's kind of what I was getting at, was that if there was, I guess what I was saying is, if there's any notion that surfing companies have influence, that's certainly out the door here.
Well,
and
this
does make sense. This does,
yeah.
Absolutely. And this does make tons of sense.
But
from that, yeah, go ahead.
I think that the more interesting kind of question for how they shot the show, produced the show, designed the show is going to be kind of what you were touching on, is what's the format? Is it, if it weighs too heavily on surfing, just, hey, let's get the best surfer to get through this event, it'll lack appeal to the broad market. If it weighs too heavily on drama in the house, it'll lack appeal to you and I. And if the winner
Maybe
gets a
not.
wild,
Maybe not, though. Maybe not. But you're assuming that the hardcore surf audience isn't also, on some level, a watcher of shows like The Big Brother or the UFC Ultimate Fighter.
I would actually prefer that it does have a lot of drama. You're right. However, what I'm suggesting is that if that undermines the fact that the best surfer wins the event and gets an entry into the WCT event, then that would be problematic. If they're dramatics in the house, give them entree into a professional surf event, that would be a problem. But I'm sure that you could do both things. And The Ultimate Fighter did both things. The Ultimate Fighter as a TV show, I watched maybe the first couple of seasons, but it's been 10 years since I've seen it. Those seasons were highly engaging, super dramatic, and they generated world champion fighters. There was a bunch of world-class fighters and champs that came out of that show.
Yeah, look, obviously, I mean, to answer your question, I can't imagine when you look at this list, it's going to be based purely on surfing, because you and I could pick apart. I could look at this and tell you who's going to be the best surfer. You know,
Yeah. Who do you think?
well, I mean, I'm, to be honest, I haven't seen them all surf, but I mean, Tia rips. She's a great
Yeah.
surfer. Like, I think she's better than Malia. I know she's, although Anastasia Ashley, the one thing Anastasia brings is she actually might have some competitive savvy. She's surfed in plenty of surfing competitions,
Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe on a purely surfing level. And then there's some of these could just be pure wild cards that rip, like Bruna Zahn. I don't know. But when I saw Bruna Zahn, I thought to myself, is that Tommy Zahn's like great granddaughter or something?
No, formerly Bruna Schmidt. She was she married Dane Zahn. So the name comes from her husband.
Is Dane Zahn somehow connected to Tommy Zahn?
Maybe, but so on the female side, since you bring it up, I think there's an opportunity. There's a modern surfer that exists that never did surf contests, but surfs great. And you and I haven't heard of them because we don't follow the platforms that they're really promoting themselves on. And one of those is this Julie Hernandez. She popped up on my radar 6 months ago or so. And so I started following her on Instagram, and she'll post a surf clip every once in a while, but lots of times it's skateboard clips or just other things. And whenever she posts a surf clip, I think to myself, man, she surfs pretty good. Like, how come I have never heard of this girl? And it's because she's not gone the traditional method of, surf contests, essentially. And there's no surf media to shine a light on her for her results in surf contests, but it turns out she surfs great. And so I could see this platform being phenomenal for somebody like that. And on the male side, I've never even heard of Austin Klaus, Mason Barnes. I guess those are the only two. So Mason Barnes could be that same guy. Maybe he's shredding in his local lineup and he has some huge Instagram following, and maybe he skates and maybe he models on the side or whatever it is. And this could be the perfect platform for them.
Well, I'm trying to look up Julie Hernandez. I can't seem to find her on Instagram, but yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of these people are going to just, somebody's, I look at these shows and I always think to myself, okay, who's going to get a job on TMZ after this? Like one of these people is going to get a producer's eye and they're going to be like, hey, do you want to co-host TMZ or one of, just some show, whatever it is, some current events show, like they have star appeal and they were fascinating in the show. And they're the character in the show that all the people that watched it, like you and I, were like, wow, who knew that Kayla Durden is actually the one that's just stealing this show, and then some producer pulls her away and she's got a little mini career going.
And I'd say, make no mistake, most of these people already have agents.
Oh,
and if that's not how they got this job, those agents are certainly lining up to get them the next job, because this is a real opportunity. I mean, these are all beautiful people. They're doing something that is so just pleasing to watch, no matter who you are around the world. When you see Kelly Slater's wave pool, that broke the internet. That broke mainstream media, even was covering all of that. Giant news corporations were doing giant segments on it. And so you put these beautiful people in there and then throw in a little bit of drama. They're all wearing bikinis and board shorts, flexing their six packs.
What else are they going to be doing? It's in the chase.
Totally. So then if that happens too, if Anastasia Ashley, the eldest in the house, starts an affair with the youngest male in the house, that would be sensational. That's a storyline right there. What
if she starts an affair with the youngest female in the house?
That's also sensational.
Right.
So, I mean, any of these scenarios, all you got to do is add alcohol, by the way. If they just put booze in the house, those things are guaranteed to happen.
Every challenge starts with a shot of tequila.
every reality show producer worth their weight in salt understands that equation,
Oh, yeah.
But who would be your pick on the male side for surfing?
Well, Zeke, to me, so this is what I was going to say, is that I looked at the list and I was going to mention Zeke Lau for a different reason, but Zeke is the obvious. He was on the CT. He's a CT worthy surfer at this wave, Zeke's actually got really good air game. But to me, the reason I bring up Zeke is I go, God, this seems kind of desperate. You know, like of all the guys on the list, I'm like, Zeke was the one that surprised me. Like really last gasp, you know, like I guess he's not going for another CT run. And, you know, he had his moment and, you know, just, I don't know.
I'm surprised that surprises you, because you're saying all of that in the context of his competitive surf career, which is irrelevant to this
Right.
competition. He's a 27-year-old hulking Hawaiian beauty. Like, why wouldn't he fit the show? He's perfect.
No, he fits the show. I just feel like it, and I don't know Zeke at all, so maybe this is in character, but to me, it's just, I don't know. I sense, I see Zeke as a guy that's chasing purple blobs at Tahiti rather than, you know, and maybe
No
he
way.
still is doing that. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't disagree, but I think he can do that for a few more years. This is a strike while the iron is hot opportunity. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
there's no doubt about that. I'm not doubting that. I was just surprised when I saw Zeke on there.
Well,
And not
more,
because of his physique or his look or anything. More, I just sensed that Zeke was more of this like hardcore surfer that would just like post up in Bali for 8 months and just kind of surf and maybe give surf lessons to Russian chicks in Bali or something. You know, like I didn't see I just felt like the Hollywood vibe didn't fit Zeke's MO. But again, I don't know Zeke from Adam, so maybe it does.
Right along those lines, Kai Barger fits that description better than Zeke does. Kai Barger is a name who fell out of surf media 5 years ago. He's 4 years older than Zeke. He's just been surfing quietly on Maui. Sponsorless, not nearly as hulking, not nearly as handsome as Zeke. No offense, Kai. So that was a name that I was shocked to see on there. I thought that was kind of an odd pick for the WSL. If their strategy is, you know, social media following and all that sort of stuff. And then Alejandro Moretta. Like, I haven't seen his name in a while, and I know he surfs well, but the guy's 35 years old and he's just out of the limelight. So
never
what's
once
behind
seen
that
guy's
pick?
name.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. You know, it's funny. I keep looking at this list and I'm like, okay, who's this, you know, who's going to be stirring the pot? You know, which one of these people are going to be the reason that you tune in to see them either blow up or do something crazy? From the women's side, you immediately go, Anastasia Ashley is savvy enough to raise her hand in the production meetings and go, I'll be the one that gets crazy if you want. I'll do that. I'll be that person. Yeah. Malia Ward also, I see her as the one that raises her hand and goes, you know what, I'll get crazy. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see, right? Alejandro Moretta, who the hell is he? You know, like,
he was a QS warrior for a while.
What about, isn't? You were on the QS. I was on the QS. We're all QS warriors. Come on.
You know who my money is on? I think you're right. Zeke Lau is the best surfer probably of that bunch, or the most well-rounded. Luke Davis, I think, could do really well in this event. His style is so well suited for Surf Ranch.
Yeah.
He's a little mild-mannered. So, you know, again, how much do theatrics and drama play into the structure of the show? He's a little mild-mannered, so he might not thrive in that. But I just think his style and his just his surfing alone is really, really good. He's got airs, he's got barrels, he's got carves, all of it.
Well, all that stuff aside, you and I think, are most interested in how this thing plays out from a format standpoint. You know, I've seen these shows where you have these people and they basically, they team you up with somebody and you go and you do these challenges. Like, for instance, there was a golf show, there still is, I forget what it's called, something like the big break, it's called, actually. And they get a guy and a girl and they go up against another guy and a girl and they have these golf challenges, you know? And so I imagine maybe they're going to have these surf challenges, like you're challenged to do, you know, 2 floaters and an end barrel on the left, and we're going to be judged. You're going to be judged by Kelly and blah, blah, blah. And then all the others sit on the sidelines and they have B-roll of their expression as these people surf these waves. And then at the end, and so that makes sense to me, but I'm more wondering how rivalries and dramas play out aside from the competitions? How do they get conflict created in the house there at the surf ranch? I imagine they're going to be staying right there in those airstreams. So that's yet to be revealed.
Somebody steals somebody's wax, or takes their fins, or dings their board, or something like that.
I mean, I can see the cut to the shot of the Airstream at night, and put the mic, a hot mic right there, and just listen to a bunch of people giggling and blah blah blah, and some and then fade away to the next week's episode. What happened in the Airstream?
Totally. So I think this could actually be a phenomenal commercial for the surf ranch itself, and for Kelly Slater Wave Co. Because think about what you just said. Okay, who's going to do 2 floaters and an air? And then they show them programming into the software, 2 floaters and an air. And then the wave starts peeling, and it gives you a floater section, and an air section. And each surfer gets the exact same wave to compete on. That's something we've never, ever seen before. We only fantasized about. And the problem is Kelly Slater's pool isn't the most adept at doing exactly that. There's other wave pool technology that you can dial up.
We don't know that.
Well, okay, unless they've changed something since,
Well, here's what's interesting, right? Is that at the very last sentence of this press release, it says, Slater's remarkable one-of-a-kind human-made wave, the most even playing field for measuring surf mastery, is at the heart of the series. So obviously these guys are like, hey, this is just a marketing vehicle for our wave to sell Coral Ranch in Palm Springs and to get people to buy homes, around our facility. And oh, by the way, Dana, if you put your name on here, Dana White, as a co-executive producer, we'll give you a little slice of the pie in Palm Springs at Coral Springs. I think that's what it's called, Coral Springs. This new resort that they're building up around Kelly's wave pool. And they may be able to now dial in little wave sections and end sections, or, errors or whatever.
They can dial in certain things, undoubtedly. They can adjust the wave, but they can't dial it in to the same degree that the wave lock pool can, and that the American Wave Machines company can. And so to the general public, of course, they don't know those differences. And so even dialing anything up will be remarkable, but it's certainly never going to have the air section that the American Wave Machines company has,
It says here, weekly eliminations will leave 2 men and 2 women. So they're going to be eliminating 2 people at each thing. So does that mean they're off the show, or does that mean they have to still hang around and be a part of the gallery that watches and oohs and ahs and hangs their head? And
I would say, I don't know, but my suggestion would be leave them in the house just to generate more drama. But yeah, they're not involved in the competition anymore.
I mean, it looks like you get to compete on the Elite WSL Championship Tour. So they're probably going to throw the winner into like a wild card spot in Brazil or something, like here you go. Yeah, here's your one chance. Good luck.
So originally, when this first 6 months ago, when this press release came out, and the cast wasn't announced, I thought that they said it would be a wild card into the Surf Ranch event.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. That could be it too. It doesn't say that here. It just says
that was
an opportunity to compete on the Elite WSL Championship Tour.
So they might have shifted it, because that was at a time when Surf Ranch was going to be in September. So if this aired in August, maybe it would be over by the event, at the CT event, and then the winner could surf in that event immediately thereafter. But the tour schedule is shifted, and that's no longer the case. So,
well, I mean, if I was to ask you who are the 2 surfers at the end, I don't know the women's side as well as I know the men's side, but I think Zeke Lau and Tia Blanco rips, man.
I think Tia on the women's side, Julie, I'm going to throw in there as a sleeper pick. And then on the men's side, I would have to give it to Zeke pretty strongly. And then maybe Luke Davis would be my second pick.
Wow.
I mean, the thing is, Alejandro Moretta surfs when he was on the QS, I'd see a clip of him every once in a while. He surfs unbelievably well. It's
Of
just,
course he does.
I just don't know how that translates to the pool. I mean, I don't know.
They all surf great on the, I mean, if, at that level, they're more or less pretty damn good.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I mean, is there going to be a guy on here that's just a full barn?
None of them are going to be barns, but I guess the other thought that I was having a hard time crystallizing is the surf ranch almost homogenizes everybody surfing, because it's like, yeah, I can think of Alejandro Moreta surfing amazing at gas chambers, but I said, how does that translate to the pool? And I could think of Kai Barger doing these crazy late drops in Maui and getting shacked and like huge tail whips. But I could see all of that being nullified by the wave pool and him just trying to fit in a couple of standard turns, and then thinking, well, you could put anybody in there. You could put, actually, Devin Howard would surf the pool better than Kai Barger in that scenario.
Well, what would happen is he would surf it the same as, right? So what you're going to see is a guy that the guy that rises above it all, that surfs loose enough, that's just like, I don't even give a shit, like a guy like a Sterling Spencer type or something like that, where he's just going to go out there and just get crazy, and he's either going to make it or not. That I agree with what you're saying, is it's going to homogenize all of the talent, unless it doesn't, unless somebody like Zeke goes, screw it, I'm going big or I'm going home, and then that guy's going to be, setting the standard.
You're right, but we've seen people try to do that in the pool. I guess Gabriel and Felipe are kind of the only guys that we've seen successfully do that in the pool.
Yeah, you do need time in the pool, right, David? That's kind of what you're getting at. You need a lot of time in the pool because there's this concept that floats above you when you're in that pool, that this is my only chance. The vibe that this is my only wave. The train is starting. Oh my God, I'm feeling pressure. Everyone's watching, and this is it. There's not a wave behind it, and that psychology, that it gets in your head.
Undoubtedly. So I mentioned Luke Davis and his style. That's who I was thinking of succeeding in the pool. And as I think more of it, he'll complete rides from beginning to end with seamless flow. In a CT, that'd be a 5-point ride, and out there, it will be, if everybody else is tripping over themselves because of what you just said and falling midway down the pool, then Luke will look amazing out there by comparison. But all that somebody would have to do is go flying, above the lip, like Griffin Colapinto that one year on the first section. He didn't wait for the end section. On the first section, blew the fins out, did basically an air reverse, and then landed right at the bottom in the trough and like pulled right into a barrel and got barreled down that section. That was a point of difference because everybody else didn't want to blow the barrel section. So they safety turned the first 2 turns and then pulled into the tube. Griffin throwing the fins there was the point of difference. So, that if somebody does something like that, but even then, as I'm thinking through it, it's not that exciting. It's kind of like that pool just homogenizes and kind of homogenizes everyone surfing and nullifies their strengths. Every time.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're going to be looking to reactions from the other surfers that are sitting in the gallery watching the other competitors. I think that's as a producer, I'm going to be asking these people to put their hearts on their sleeves when they're watching, because we need to cut. And then I imagine what's going to happen is they're going to cut to the dinner table, and there's going to be some discussion, and somebody like Anastasia Ashley is going to say something crazy like, Zeke, I mean, if Zeke would have done this, it would have, like, there's going to be some outlandish conflict at the dinner table that's going to help to amp up the moment when we're actually watching the surfing. And I guarantee you that there are agents that are like, Anastasia, here's our plan. I want you to just be fucking wacky. I want you to just be crazy at the dinner table. Like, we want
cut a bitch.
Yeah, just like go crazy, you know what I mean? Raise your hand and go, Zeke, I'm pregnant, like really blow, because they all want, the producers all want to be able to go, oh my God, next week you won't believe the big reveal,
especially if it's on ABC. That's the other thing, you know.
Yeah, maybe they won't show pregnant.
No, I think they would on ABC.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah. I guess the funny thing is that you led. This is the leading story this week. I fully thought that I would mention the Ultimate Surfer, and you'd be like, "That's not even a news story. I don't care about the Ultimate
well,
Surfer."
look, it's when I first saw it, that was my reaction. My reaction was, "This is lame." You know, this.
Yeah.
I immediately went to the surfers are the worst. This is lame. Then I kind of excavated my feelings about it, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm actually going to watch this because I was kind of engaged by their promo image of the surfers. I was like, oh, you know, I was like, well, Zeke's in this. I want to kind of watch Zeke, you know, and Anastasia Ashley's in this. She could go like Karen on the whole show, you know what I mean? And so I was engaged by that image, right? I was stoked to see who the list was. And then, oh, I don't know this guy. They all looked like legitimate contenders on some level, you know. It wasn't like for instance, they picked this guy, Mason Barnes. Now, I don't know Mason Barnes, and I'm not engaged by Mason Barnes. If they would have picked a bunch of Mason Barnes from Venice, I probably would have went, yep, as lame as I thought. There's no way. I've never even heard of Mason Barnes. There's no way he's a CT level surfer. But with Zeke and Kai Barger and Koa Smith and Luke Davis, you're kind of like, you know what? Those guys could actually be in the bottom 20 of the CT right now. Like they surf as good as, you know, number 25, whoever that is.
And if Mason can hang in any way with them as a surfer, then that's amazing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he might be a surprise. He's the one guy where you're like, who? Oh, they just grabbed a local guy from Venice because he's nearby to the shoot or something. Like he can fill. I don't know why. Do you know Mason Barnes?
No, I've never heard of him. Well, I agree with you. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited for the implications for everyone involved and for surfing at large. I think, you know, could be a good thing.
Yeah, look, it's going to be fun or it's not, you know, whatever, you know what I mean? It's either going to be fun or it's going to be not fun, you know, but I think the bigger thing is, you know, oh my God, is this what the WSL's come to, you know? And I think
the answer is yes,
it is. But what you need to do though, is you kind of need to separate the two. You kind of need to, like, some people are going, this is what they're putting all their energy into. No wonder the CT is lame. And there might be some validity to that claim. And I think you're probably going to take that position, you know, based on the past year and their inability to get us in really good waves, although we've had some pretty good waves. But I think you need to separate the two and realize, look, there's the entertainment division, which I think has nothing to do with what's happening in Australia right now. They're focused on making this thing. And frankly, this thing might drive enough revenue to make it so that the CT actually can be a loss leader. You know what I mean? And so the idea that these are all, that they're putting all this energy into this, and that's why over there is not good, I think it's an easy place. It's low-hanging fruit that I don't think has any validity.
And I think ultimately the goal is this not only is a profit center, but it actually makes the tour more popular. It makes their main product more viable, more popular. And so that can remain the main product. But this is a marketing vehicle for that main product, you know, and this engages non-coastal dwellers to then watch the main product, which was we were never able to do before.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, initially the WSL is like, hey, everyone's going to watch us like the NFL. We're going to pick up all these guys, all these people in the middle of the US that don't know anything about surfing. And that just never happened. And so now this is actually a smart move, as you say, to maybe get a few, maybe hook a few of those Ohio residents that have never surfed, but love Kelly Slater, you know?
Totally. I know this isn't exactly analogous, but I've started watching The Voice. Have you ever watched The Voice?
I watched the very first couple seasons of The Voice and absolutely loved it.
It's freaking good, dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm just moving around the house and Lauren would have it on in the living room. And I would just be like, oh, that's so like network TV to me is like gnawing, you know, grating. And because it's just so overproduced and they have like these little audio cues and like cuts to the response from the audience, kind of like, oh, it's just over the top. So I walk by and I cringe. Within 2 weeks, I'm sitting on the sofa next to her, staring at the TV, like cheering for certain contenders, you know, like that overproducing is a very specific equation that tugs on your heartstrings and pulls on your emotions. And it brought me in and I was fully engaged in it, you know?
Look, I think if you boil down The Voice, the bottom line is that those people have incredible talent. And there's a lot of truth to The Voice, you know, like the B-roll stuff you see when they like meet meet one of the stars for their production process, where they're like, okay, this is the song we're going to do.
Yeah.
When they go in and they play the piano and they go like, try to get to a different pitch. Like that's all really happening. Like you know what I mean? It's not like we're at the dinner table and somebody's saying, Zeke, you got me pregnant. You know, like that's BS. Like that's, you know what I mean? But like the stuff you see in The Voice is like really truthfully happening. And then you cut to the performances and these people all have really good voices. I mean, once you get to that level, they've been weeded out. They've filtered out that, you know, all you got to do is get an agent, put a nice dress on this person and she's a star.
Yeah. And so that could be the equation they follow for this show too, is like cut to Malia Ward on her hometown in San Clemente and like meeting her parents, hearing about her family background, hearing about her upbringing, you know, all that sort of stuff would be wise to build interest in the characters.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that stuff will maybe happen later on in the series after the producers just have determined through market research which one is getting the most traction amongst the viewers. And then they're like, look,
still in the event.
Everyone really loves this person. Let's, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about that.
We're excited. Apparently we are excited.
We wasted too much of this show. John Florence has had surgery. Right. I just read on it was on Instagram too, but John posted a photo of himself in a hospital bed, surrounded by his wife, surgeon to the Surf Stars, Warren Kramer, and his right-hand man, Eric Metzen. I'm reading directly from Stab, by the way. And John's caption read, and this is quoting John, I woke up to the report from the surgeon that everything went well as possible, and the procedure I had will give me the opportunity to surf at full strength sooner than I had hoped. And that's an important sentence. Feeling motivated to really know that the Olympics are attainable. I am excited for this and I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. Is Kelly Slater cringing? Of course not. He loves John. John could be his son. But when you hear that, you know, are the Olympics cringing? Like, you know, of course, John's is powerful, and you know, a surfer as Kelly as far as viewership and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on all of this?
I think what's super interesting is all three, I mean, the two and the one alternate male American competitors are all injured right now. Chloe Andino's out with injury. He's the number one. John and Kelly were fighting for the number 2 spot in 2019 because it was based on the rankings. And John was injured for most of that season. He came back to compete at Pipeline strictly to protect his Olympic spot, which he did. Kelly got injured before Australia this year. And now John's injured. So John, I don't know what Kaloe's outlook is, if Kaloe will be healed and ready for competition in August in July, I guess. And if he isn't, then Kelly gets bumped in as the alternate. John's claiming that he probably will be able to compete. Will Kelly be able to compete by then? We don't know. And so Seth Moniz is the next call up after that. And this doesn't bode well for America's very first Olympic bird.
What do you think I'm thinking right now? Any idea what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that there's an American on tour that looks as good as the only American on tour, John Florence.
Griffin.
Right. In my opinion, Griffin has got the game for Shitadata or whatever in Japan, that wave. Griffin Colapinto. Yeah, sorry. Griffin Colapinto, in my opinion, like if you could pick an Olympic team, he would be on the team. He was surfing insane at Margaret's.
Totally. I thought he
he
could have won that event.
I do too. He looks so great. And so anyway, that's what I'm
Well,
thinking. I'm like, where's Griffin in all this? Do we really?
He's right after Seth.
Yeah.
So he's the next alternate after Seth based on the 2019 rankings.
Could we have
And
Seth and Griffin?
I mean, we'd almost be better off at this point.
Don't you think?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Seth, as great of a surfer as Seth is, he's continually disappoints in competition. I think he did okay at Margaret, but yeah, Griffin stood out at Margaret River. Griffin, every heat that he was in, I thought to myself, I almost even texted you, Griff could win this thing.
Yeah.
But so
how did you come to that determination, specifically with Griffin's surfing?
He had a kind of element of progression that nobody else had. There was a lot of good surfers out there that would just go and throw 2 hooks, on the open face. Griff had like fins coming free. His board would kind of disengage at a certain point and it would slide and he would hold it together. I remember one fins free turn he did on the first section of the wave where it was like a turn everybody else was doing, except it was a foot above the lip of the wave. And then he just rode it out beautifully. When he was hitting the end section, it was the same thing. There was like a lot more kind of perilous moment where he'd hit the end section. You weren't sure if he was going to make it or not. And then he would land. A lot of people are stuffing that end section before the lip, like turning just before they hit the lip so they don't have to encounter that reverberation. He'd go straight into it. His board would kind of wobble and then he'd land in the flats, it was exciting.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest to you, is that the way Griffin handled that end section was always with conviction. Even if he was maybe wobbling a little bit, I wouldn't suggest you, or just suggest you he was just kind of falling.
Well, the board might flutter under his feet to where he thinks, yeah.
But when he landed with such conviction.
Totally.
I just thought he really commanded that end section. Like he was like, I'm here. Like he put a stamp on every end.
Exactly. So that's what I was trying to say too, is that he would bend the wave to his will, like smashing into the lip, where whenever anybody turns before the lip on that section, they're doing it just to play it safe. If they were free surfing, they would crack the lip and maybe they'd fall. But in the comp, they're like, oh, I don't want to ruin this wave. So I'm just going to turn in front of the lip and hopefully the judges will think that was an end section turn. And that's pathetic, because when you see somebody do it right, John was doing it right, which is how he got injured. It's amazing,
Yeah.
And Griff was doing it.
And what about this event? Did I think it finished last week after our show, right?
Right? Yeah, Margaret River.
Yeah. Real quick. Yeah. I mean, look, the thing is about these competitions is they kind of speak for themselves. There's not too much discussion. I know that you like to break it down pretty heavily, but I mean, my main takeaway is Jordy had a great result and he's got to be happy with his result. And Jordy's in the top 5 now. And Julian Wilson sort of faded from the conversation here, the Jordy Julian conversation.
How did you think Jordy looked?
I thought he didn't. I thought he just like was scraping by. He was just like scraping by every heat. He was just barely pulling it off. And he didn't necessarily look sharp until the semifinal heat. I thought the semifinal heat, he wrapped it up to a different notch. He ratcheted it up, to a different level. And so, like I said, a second place is a win relative to his place on the rankings.
Undeniable, it is, not to take anything away from Jordy, but Jordy is not surfing to Jordy potential in this event. And congratulations for making it through those heats. And you're right, when Griffin held him to task in that semifinal heat, he elevated. But we've talked about Jordy in the past. Maybe he's been trying to peak late in the season. He's proven for a decade, more than a decade, that he can do anything, right? And so when you see him holding back, he has the talent. So why isn't he delivering on this wave? And it's because maybe he's such a savvy competitor and he's learned for so many years through Kelly mainly that you want to peak against the best athlete at the right time in the event, not set too many expectations for the judges. There's all sorts of other things. And so maybe that's what he's doing. But it's like when he's barely getting through heats by, less than a point, it makes me think that's not the strategy. He's actually trying his damnedest, and he's getting a 4 against Julian at the buzzer beater and claiming it like it's a 10 because he's that shocked that he put together that, like, and so I don't know what's going on with Jordy. He's so much more talented than his surfing is illustrating or demonstrating. And he's a full world title contender, and he deserved to be in the final. But it was almost like with Connor Coffin at the previous event, where you go back and you look at the surfing, and it's like Connor wasn't the second best surfer in this event by far. Yeah. Jordy was not the second best surfer in this event by far. Griffin Colapinto was. John Florence certainly was.
Well, that's just the nature of the draw. How these things are drawn. How the seeding happens. So it is what it is. It's I don't know. Did you see that Taj got the Rottnest?
I did.
So Taj Burrow's going to be the wild card at Rottnest. These wild cards, when they put these older guys in it, I just feel like they're doing a disservice.
I do too.
I mean, like if I want to watch Taj surf, I'll go watch Stab in the Dark. You know what I mean? Which I love. But do you really think, so I guess on some level you're like, okay, Taj could go in there and he could upset the situation, which is kind of cool. I get that. As long as he upsets it in the like quarterfinals or the semis. It's when they just kind of like mail it in and they get a 13th. They get through the
which Mick Fanning did,
Exactly.
So I think they've got Cale Walsh. So there's 4 wild cards in this event: Cale Walsh, Liam O'Brien, Stewie Kennedy, and so 2 older guys, 2 younger guys. Taj being the 4th. So what Stewie and Taj bring to the table, if Taj isn't at the top of his surfing game, he brings competitive savvy. So it's like, okay, well, Cale Walsh is this up and coming ripper, so let's throw Cale Walsh in there. But often those up and coming rippers lose in the early rounds because they don't have competitive savvy. So I think they're trying to find, somebody who represents each. I think actually Stewie Kennedy could be the better pick here.
Yeah.
Even though he never had the success that Taj had on tour, his surfing is still at the top of his game. If you watch any of him online, he is as sharp as a tack, maybe even sharper than he used to be on tour, to be honest. Yeah. And so I could see him upsetting everything.
I guess part of my concern about somebody like Taj as the wild card is that I sense, and I could be wrong, that Taj goes into it like, whatever, what do I got to lose? Have put on a jersey, go have a couple heats, whatever. And that sort of was his MO throughout. He was always kind of like, well, we'll see what happens, Yeah. And I think these wild cards need to be somebody, and I'm going to use Brad Gerlach as an example. Somebody who's like, I'm going to win this thing. Like, this is my chance, like that has the mental sort of competitive, like Brett Simpson comes to mind. Like he might not be the guy, but he's going to like go at it like, this is my chance to win. Where I think Taj is like, oh, cool, I'll have a few brews afterwards with the mates up on the patio, it'll be fun. I'd rather these older wild cards be guys like Stu Kennedy that are just competitors, that like the guy that will not lose at ping pong on a Saturday night, like that type of guy. And I don't know Taj, but I sense that he's kind of the vibe that you get is like, I'm a little bit out of shape. I'll do Stab in the Dark, don't hold me to it, blah, blah, blah. Sure, I'll put on a jersey. There's just not that sense that he could really upset the apple cart.
And unless you come into it with that dogged mentality, you're not gonna dethrone, the world title contenders. Yeah. Like Idolo's not gonna lose to somebody who comes in half-assed.
No.
One of the other incredible performances in this event was Matt McGillivray.
Yeah.
I mean, no joke.
I know. And I had picked him for one of the earlier events on New South Wales, but yeah, Matt looked really great, frankly. Like he when there was moments that he had to reach those moments, he reached those moments, where he could have easily just went, oh, well, I'm surfing against one of my favorite surfers ever. I'm just going to be excited for the moment. And wow, what an experience. And instead he went kind of like Andy would do against Kelly. He's like, all right, well, that guy used to be my hero, but now he's my enemy. And I'm going to go out there and surf well.
Well, it looked similar to what we saw from Morgan Siblick in the previous 2 events, where, yeah, he was unflappable, wasn't intimidated by any of the big name competitors. And his surfing also just looks so well-rounded, so polished. So his fundamentals are really sound, and his style, flow in between turns, all that sort of stuff. I was really impressed.
Yeah, he was fun to watch, and I'm sure that you know, it's good for the world tour to have a couple South Africans that are moving the needle.
Another couple of interesting things worth discussing. Gabriel Medina lost uncharacteristically to Seth Moniz in the round of 16, I believe. Yeah, round of 16. So that's an early loss for him. Kanoa Igarashi, very uncharacteristically, burned Matt McGillivray in their heat at the very beginning of the heat. Completely like unforced, just full brain fart. Like, Matt McGillivray has priority, is paddling into the wave. Kanoa's on the shoulder, just goes and burns him. He never looked back once. And how he didn't have an awareness of where the guy with priority was in the heat was unacceptable. And just so unlike Kanoa. Kanoa's a steel, like a very steely competitor.
But
usually.
is it though? I mean, now we have two different situations with Kanoa that are totally out of character. One, I can, give a pass to, okay, that happens to everybody. 2 times what is it that he lets down his guard, or his mental game isn't there? Does he have too many visa commercials he's got to go do?
Yes.
What's going
that's
on?
it.
The Olympics
honestly,
in Japan, it's like, it built up in 2020. You've got an extra year of Olympic Kanoa vibe, in Japan. He's huge, man. And that pressure, maybe is that pressure cracking the seal a little bit here?
Further, I'll make a further claim in that I think that he enjoys the limelight. And so I think that he's reveling in it a little bit.
Absolutely.
And yeah, there's some surfers, I don't know, Idolo would probably be a great example where you can see him enjoying the limelight, but it's really, he's just he's an affable guy. He's having a blast. And if there's cameras there, he's happy to just continue having a blast in front of the cameras. It seems like Kanoa is a little bit more
caught up,
calculated. Yeah, he's a little more calculated in trying to vie for that limelight. And then, yes, caught up once the attention comes, that he's actually like thriving off of it. And
maybe there's a girl in the picture,
something.
Or maybe who knows?
There's been a girl for a while. I don't know
really?
If
maybe there's another. This is like the ultimate surfer. We're just throwing stuff out there, seeing what sticks. Something.
All of it.
It must be something in his headspace. I think you really nailed it. That at some point, all of this attention gets in your way, and it's hard to get it out of the way and to focus.
You have to actively try to not let it get in your way, because if you're making millions of dollars a year, women are lining up, you're traveling the world, you're young,
everyone's bowing down to you,
as Professor Galloway, who you love, one of his quotes is like, look, if you tell a 30-year-old male that they're Jesus and give them $1 million, they'll tend to believe you.
That's so true.
It's 100. I mean, it's so true. I mean, that is
How old is Kanoa?
26, maybe.
Okay, so
no, maybe that's a little old. Maybe 24.
So his frontal cortex isn't quite developed yet either. Bad decision making.
Exactly. So, yeah. I mean, you really need actively to be fighting that impulse off, and your family all around you fighting that impulse off, which, to be honest, maybe that's why Felipe's family was traveling with him for all those years, and Gabriel's family, was to create the buffer from all of the vice and opportunity. And
what's going on in the Kanoa camp? Are they just having like closed door scream sessions? Like, what are you doing?
I don't know who that camp is,
because I guarantee you, if he's 24 years old, they've been molding this kid for 24 years, man.
I will say I've known Kanoa since he was a kid. I have not talked to him in years, but I've known him since he was very young, and I've known his parents, and they are so solid, super solid family. And So, but they don't travel with him anymore, like, so he's out on the road and he's kind of been, I think he's achieved all of their goals and hopes that they had for him. And even maybe has the sport has grown to a level that it wasn't at when he was young. And so he's even gone bigger and farther than they anticipated.
He must have a handler. I mean,
but the
maybe we're reading too much
so
into this. Are we reading too much into this? Is this just us making this up, or is two mental mistakes enough for us to go, what's going on?
It's not just two mental mistakes.
Why would you do that?
We're pulling data points from a lot of other things that we've seen too, but this, we never commented on it until there was these two mental mistakes.
Right.
But let me look at the rankings real quick, because he was in that top 5 conversation. Okay. He's in 7th now.
Yeah.
So he's still not far out of it. Griffin Colapinto's 6th, Jordy's in 5th, John's in 4th, but obviously he'll get shuffled out of that real quick, being injured. And then you've got Felipe in 3rd, Idolo and Gabriel in 1st. So that's a Brazilian top 3. Yeah, I don't know. The top, I mean, I could see Gabriel, Idolo, and Felipe being locks for lowers. You can count on those guys probably being in the top 5 as we go into lowers. So it's really the final 2 spots that are open.
Wow, is an Australian going to be locked out of lowers?
Well, Ryan Callanan is the best positioned right now. And
Jordy, Griffin, Kanoa are ahead of Ryan.
Yeah.
And then there's no other Australian until Morgan.
In 11th.
Morgan really going to have a further run into this? Never know.
I have no idea. Let's real quickly, what about Rottnest? Do you have any insights into who will perform well there?
I don't think we really do. It truly is a wild card because no one really knows what the wave's like. I mean, on some level, I guess we know what the wave's like, but not really. And I don't think the surfers do either. So in my opinion, you look at the guys that have competitive savvy, that are really going to study the lineup, that are really going to have like a Jake Patterson there going, look, I know the right seems like to go, but you're going to score more points on the left, or whatever, whatever the case may be. The guy that's really focused on how the conditions are changing and where I can get the most points. And I know they all are, but you'd be surprised. There's people that are just rocking up and going, I don't know, looks like the left looks fun,
Totally.
So I see this as a place for veterans. I think somebody like Owen Wright, somebody like that could surprise, like a well-surfed, established veteran could do well here.
That's a good call. On the final day at Margaret River, it was Mother's Day in California, or in America, and I was distracted by Mother's Day things, but I got a text from you saying, dude, watching the WSL and watching Jack Robinson's live feed over at the box right now. What was that all about?
Oh, dude, this was one of the greatest things ever. So Maddie Bemrose had Jack Robinson's phone. He was sitting in Chris Bryan's boat, basically a ski with a protector around it, and they were so close to the box. And while the main event was happening for the CT, the box was going off, and there was Leo Fioravanti, Jack Robinson, of course, Wade Carmichael, Kanoa, and some other guys, just some rando local guys. One of them named Zinkhead, who became sort of this legend out there because he was Maddie. So the best thing about, there was 2 great things. The waves were really killer and guys were getting its proper shacks. And then Matt Bemrose was doing the commentary, and it was just pure Australian gold, as if you're at the pub and he's got a schooner anew in his hand and he's just going, blah, 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 and then, he would talk to Chris Bryan, the guy driving the boat, and Chris and him would have a go. And it was just fun. And it was exciting because they were going over waves and the thing, and then doing a circle and coming back, and then there'd be a set, and then he'd look over there and he would ask us, hey, who's winning the main event? What's going on over there at the event? And people would chime in, Idolo's winning or whatever. And then he'd go, well, mate, they should have it here. It was just a lot of fun.
So who was ruling that session?
Well, the thing that was cool is that they had a pretty good rotation going, literally Matt would go, okay, I think Kanoa's up, and Kanoa would go, and he'd be, looks like Wade Carmichael's up, and Wade would go, and it looks like Jack Robbo's up, and Jack would go, and there was And then of course there were these underneath ones that were coming in, and that's where the zinc head guy sort of stole the show, because Matt didn't know who Zinkhead was. He's like, who is that guy? He had this face that was covered in pure white zinc. And so he was calling him Zinkhead, and he was paddling like a frothing maniac, going for every wave. And soon enough, this Zinkhead guy sort of became, like a character in this event that was occurring and going down live.
Why didn't the WSL surf it or use it?
I can't speak to that.
Was it contestable?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the problem, obviously, it sounds like there was waves, but the reason why the WSL won't run out there at times is it's not as consistent as main break is. Did it seem like there would be two waves per competitor per heat?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There would have been 2 waves, 4 waves total. But that could have also been the case. That could have been the case where there was a ton of downtime. There was more opportunity at main break. Was there an opportunity for a dredging perfect slabby right-hander? No. But I mean, interestingly, guys were getting some pretty good tubes at main break.
I know. Yeah, that is always interesting. It's always surprising to me when that happens.
Yeah.
Well, we have Stab's Rich List, but I feel like that'll take some time, and we're at the end of our allotted time for the show.
Yeah.
So in regard to the box, my must-see moment, some rando local filmer filmed a session. It wasn't that session. This was about a week prior at the end of April. And so I'll post that footage. It's called the WSL Pros Free Surfing at the Box. John Florence, Griffin Colapinto, all the names that you would want to see doing what you would want to see them do in the WSL event, but the waves were pumping there. And it was just before the start of the event. So I'll post that footage. Must-see moment of the week.
Cool. I've seen that, actually. I did watch that, and it was good. And I enjoyed it. And there's a lot of action.
I know it's always exciting to see the box. It's dramatic.
By the way, I interviewed John Pizell for the Boardroom podcast. So listeners out there, a really insightful discussion with him. And, if you're interested in board design, John's a fun guy to talk to.
We're publishing that today, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you guys talk about? What did you get out of that conversation? What did you enjoy about it?
A lot of talk about big wave board design, a lot of talk about board design in general. A lot of talk about his history, where he came from, how he became who he is, his upbringing through the ranks of surfboard manufacturing. I purposely stayed away from the John injury. I didn't want to. I feel like you do a disservice when you talk to a shaper and all you talk about is his team rider. I want to talk to the shaper about the shaper. I want to learn about John Pizell, and so I think there's a lot of that, which is fascinating to me. John's
a good guy. Yeah, really cool dude. And he made the boards that John's riding in his recent film, Maps of Home, on that giant outer reef left. It's like a 998 Padillac from Pizell. He made those.
Those were brand new boards. First time John rode that board was in those.
I remember the glass house, I think it's Third Stone Glassing on the North Shore, saying like, we rushed the laminations on these boards. Like they showed up, normal turnaround time is whatever, a couple of weeks. And it was like that swell was on. And so we just put those to the front of the line. Imagine laminating a 10-foot gun too. It's no easy task. And yeah, it was like, go pick them up from the laminator the morning of the swell kind of a thing. Yeah. So quite the story in those boards. I mean, there's a lot that goes into a design like that to pull into a backside barrel.
Yeah.
At 20 feet.
Yeah. So. You'll listen to the podcast. You'll get some insight from John on it.
Cool. The final thing that I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Olympics that we should mention before closing is apparently each team has to send 2 competitors down to the ISA World Games in El Salvador.
Right.
And so that is kind of a burden to travel. Yeah. And that is in 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
The ISA Games. Okay. Yeah. It's May 29th through June 6th in El Salvador. And so
That seems weird. There should be a waiver, I think. I mean,
Well, it
don't we
it
all know
conflicts.
who's doing it? Don't we all know who the competitors are at this time?
Well, it
I mean,
conflicts with the
it's,
WSL schedule as well.
it seems like it's the ISA going, hey, man, like I get it's definitely what it is it's a marketing move.
Yeah, of course.
It's like the pre-event before the event. Let's get everyone. And I understand that it gets people psyched for the Olympics. Or aren't I already psyched for the Olympics? Like if I'm not psyched now, I guess it pulls some people in. I get it. I'm not against it. But in the times of COVID, it seems like, maybe you could throw a waiver here, but whatever.
Well, in the time of COVID,
whatever.
and also when the WSL is running events in those exact windows, so it conflicts with that. So, by the way, you don't have to send the whole team. It has to be 2 competitors. So they could, in theory, like Seth Moniz and, Griffin Colapinto could go down there just to make the appearance for the rest of the team.
Yeah.
But that is kind of a sticky little detail there.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, the Rottnest event, do we know what we're looking at here as far as dates? Doesn't it start up here and
starts on the 16th?
Sunday. Okay, the 16th. Is that their 16th? Which would be our
16th.
Saturday, the 15th. So this Saturday on the West Coast here in North America, Pacific time would probably be around 4:00. We'll get the green light or not this Saturday, the 14th.
I don't know what the swell forecast looks like, but you and I will reconvene on Spit next week, and we will discuss, as well as Stab's Rich List, the 11 richest or highest paid surfers of 2020.
Yeah. Oh, great. Always a great read. Sam McIntosh does a great job. I find that stuff fascinating.
Yeah, he does. And then, Scott, you got any exciting plans this week that you want to tell us about?
No, I'm just
cool.
busy. I got to go take my aunt to the doctor right now.
Oh, wow. Look at you. What a good nephew. And the boardroom show, give it a shout out to
September 25th and 26th. September 25th and 26th, the Surfboard Manufacturing Industries Trade Show, open to the public in Del Mar. The Boardroom Surfboard Show presented by US Blanks.
I will be there, Scott. I will see you there.
Yeah, buddy. We're going to be birthing your child there. It'll be insane.
It's going to be close. All right.
Okay. Adios and aloha. Until next time. Adios and aloha.